Hi, Sonia.
Hello, how are you?
One, it being 9:01 on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025, I'd like to bring together the call to order the Kane County Human Services Committee.
Allen, Garcia,
Garcia here.
Ripe,
Right here.
Lewis,
Remote.
Tarver,
Tarver's here.
Linder,
Linder here.
Sturgis.
Present.
Out this here.
Roth is here. We'd like permission for remote attendance for Mr. Tarver. Bill, I have you.
No objections.
No objections? He is approved. Okay, could I have a motion for approval of minutes of the July 9th, 2025 meeting?
Gripe moves for unanimous consent of July 2025 meeting.
Sonia will second.
Sonia seconds. Any conversations there? All good? Financial reports are on file. Comments or concerns could be directed appropriately. Department of Human Resource Management, going to turn this over to Jamie for health insurance, risk management, and staffing.
Yep. Good morning, Christine.
Or Christine.
Christine Davis, Human Resources. So the first report on file is the Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice for the month of July. That is at 1.4 million. The next report is the Assured Partners report. And if you turn to page 15, it breaks down the Blue Cross Blue Shield invoice. I do want to show you the bottom. The total number of claims have been added. I know that was the request from the board. So that's been included. And then the next report are the total numbers of employees, spouses, and dependents and MERP participants. Does anybody have any questions?
So Chris, if we're looking at some averages, if we were at 1.2 to 1.4 monthly, we had a spike on 2 months, correct? Like 1.6, 1.8,
Yes.
and we are back down within, but those correlate pretty strongly that we slid through that pretty quick, but it was just sheer volume.
Yeah, we had some very high claims.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on any of that?
I have.
Mr. Linder?
Yeah, so for the last month, we had far fewer claims. I'm sorry. Yeah, in the
Like 1,000 less?
prior month, we had far fewer claims. Is that an annual sort of a thing? People going back to school don't have time to go to the doctor, or is that just what happened?
Let me ask a question before you answer that. So claim time is almost real time, but payments is trailed. Am I saying, Jamie, can you translate that for me?
I think what you're asking is, does the claim date that shows, is that have to do with when the claim occurred and not necessarily?
Yes.
They have 6 months to submit a claim following the date of service. So we can't really correlate that to anything specific. It could be summer vacations and maybe the doctor's office not sending in as many claims because their staff is out. It's really impossible to pinpoint the reason a month would be low.
Because it's a big difference. It's not just a little.
1,000.
Yeah, it's 25% more or less.
Or is that June back to school claims and everybody bringing their kids to the doctors? Or is that,
Could be.
and can you get any granular for that for next month? Can you
We
pull-
really don't collect that level of detail
didn't
on
think
our
so,
employee
yeah.
claims.
Yeah, Mike, I'm
This-
sorry. I don't know that we can answer that.
It's okay. It's good news. The claims are down. I mean,
If it were something that were to continue for several months, we would certainly address our broker to try to look for a cause, but a one-off month where it's particularly low, if you look back at past years, it's not uncommon.
Okay, so, and Mike, I'm not seeing a wave here.
no, I'm saying.
All I'm seeing is a drop from 1 month when
For
everybody
1
went on
month, and I'm
vacation.
just wondering
Yeah.
what, whether there was an accounting change or something that
Yeah,
software. I hope it stays low for a couple of months.
no, they just knew we were
We'll
reporting
make up
it,
for
so
those
they
couple of
stopped.
high,
Yeah,
make up for a couple of high months.
got it. Christine, thank you. What was the next one? Risk management?
Morning, David Larson, Human Resources. There we go. So these are the first slate of reports that you're used to seeing, the top 5 locations or offices / departments that have been involved in these incidents. Next slide, please.
Blair, next slide.
And then the workers' compensation trend for the last few policy periods, our cost per claim is roughly tracking. The next slide are the departments with the top 5 locations or groupings where losses have been reported. And this is one where last committee meeting, there was a request to try some other level of data about where these are occurring. And because the sheriff's office is the largest by volume number of incidents, that was one that I dove into a little bit to get some collections of data without getting too specific. And so if you look at page 27 of the agenda packet, so it's a few more after these collections of slides, I was able to do that between the 3 divisions of the sheriff's office, corrections, public safety, and court security, and did my best to lump them together, similar causes together.
But David, in just looking at this slide, in the world that Sonia and I live in, where frequency and severity are the 2 components,
Absolutely.
the coroner's office, while has significantly less frequency, that severity is huge. What do we know what happened in those 2?
We do, but we can't really have a discussion about
Super.
people's medical problems in this meeting.
Okay, thank you. But if we can just note that, that's 2 claims for 100,000 compared to 21 claims for 230,000. I mean, that's enough to pop up and catch someone's attention. So, John?
Thank you, sir. So I'm looking at the corner, and I understand we can't talk about the what, but I looked at the dark blue, and if I'm reading that right, it says it refers to caught in between. Am I reading the chart? It's page 20 is the one I'm looking at. And there's a whole lot of, well, percentage wise, at least, claims related to caught in between, which I would getting squished by something or what?
Is that caught in between or lifting? I can't see the colors.
I think it's,
I believe it's the lifting one.
oh, it's
So
lifting.
if you look at the numbers.
Okay, I can't, it's
above,
hard to tell.
Yeah.
You old fart.
Lifting.
Same problem, the colors.
Yeah. Okay. So, but regardless, whether I'm being squished between something or, hurt myself lifting something, that would seem to be something we could do something about, right? Maybe we need different equipment or training or any insight into that. Not that it's what you guys have to do, but I just see that as maybe we could make that go away.
That's among the things David does. Historically, prior, David just started earlier this year. And prior to that, we were reactive in our responses to these, in that when we saw a trend, we would then look into that trend and react to it. David's role is really to be more proactive, to make sure that we have good policies and procedures, training, safety, and all of that to try to mitigate these claims before they happen. Again, he's just getting started with his program, but he spent a lot of time. He goes out to the departments, walks around in the departments, takes a look, keeping his eyes open for slip, trip, and fall things. And not just workers' comp, but other liability issues, fire hazards, things like that. So, that's exactly what you're saying is exactly why he's here and how he's spending his time.
No, and I didn't mean to imply any
No, I know. I'm
upset
just,
with it. I mean, the
I'm-
fact that we're looking at this stuff is awesome because we didn't have this stuff.
yeah,
before.
I'm echoing my agreement with you that
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct, that if there's something like that that's happening, that's exactly what he's here to focus on, because you're exactly right. Those are preventable, proper lifting techniques, not lifting more than you're physically able to lift, things like that.
David, on the sheriff's portion there, again, it's just a color issue, but in the first column, that's the tallest in the blue. Is that slip, trip, fall, or is that animal?
Double checking the numbers above. I believe that would be slip, trip, fall on that
Okay.
chart itself.
And then the red one, the next one is Human?
combative person. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, say that again?
Someone who is combative. So a human.
Okay,
being, yeah.
got it. Okay, and then do we even want to know what the bodily fluids one is? What?
No.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you. Keep going, David. Thank you.
If we can go to slide number 27. Thank you. So this is where I took that sheriff's office data from December 1st, 2022 through the end of July and broke it up between corrections, court security, and public safety, which was the request from the last committee meeting. And this is just a very high level number of incidents, kind of some incurred costs. And then the following slide will begin to break down into some of these categories according to that. So this is corrections, the type of injuries that can occur in a corrections environment. Again, I can't, in this open setting, can't go into too much detail here.
So Jamie and David, and please, anybody. So how do we begin to compare? This is great data to have, but how do you begin to compare if combative persons is it? And that's just inherent to the role.
Yeah, I believe that.
Is there enough data to compare against other jails that have or departments that have combative across the state and kind of work with a larger figure to say, is there a general guideline? Like, how did that county get theirs down? What did they do? Is there a database?
There's no database for that. And I think there's too many factors for comparison like that to really help us determine if we're on track. For example, the severity of the offenses associated with the inmates would probably have a big influence on that. You could compare yourself to, Stevenson County, Illinois, but I imagine that absent some of the larger metropolitan areas we have, I don't think you'd be able to draw a good comparison. Again, the city of Chicago is going to have a much different experience than we do for that same reason. So I think it's difficult to use data like that. There isn't. We would have to individually contact different agencies to get that data. And
Well,
I'm
how do
not
we know
sure
if-
you would be able to correlate well with it.
How do
It's-
we know if we're doing good or bad? How do we try and fix it? If we
We're
don't
gonna-
have a model, what do we do?
We're going to use our year over year now that we have David implementing risk management to try to see if a few years ago, we started marking things preventable and unpreventable to help us track this kind of data. That is just to look at things where we could believe we could move the needle versus things that we don't believe we can move the needle on, such as combative inmates. I don't believe there's much that we can do to move the needle on combative inmates. It is inherent to the work of corrections, and it's going to happen. Further, the sheriff would have to be in charge of anything to do with addressing combative inmates, certainly, and not something that we can do in this department. But when you look at slip, trip, and fall, or lifting incidents, or there are things like that that we have marked as preventable for that purpose to really give us that indication of these are the things that we think we can potentially move the needle on. And then as we implement programs, we look at if we are actually moving the needle on those in the year over year.
Anita, did you have a question?
Jamie just led me right into it. Looking at this data that whether it's the sheriff's department, corrections, whichever, slip, trips, and falls keep coming up. Coroner, all the departments have slip, trips, and falls as one of their top ones. And so I think that just starting there, that's kind of low hanging fruit because that's things that we can actually look at. You guys can do a deep dive into those and looking like what really caused those. Was it, something that we can prevent? Do they have to have better shoes? Do we have to mark things better? Do we have to do things? But I think we can really make a huge impact just starting there before we get to worrying about combative inmates.
We do. And if we're not focusing on combative inmates. That lies completely within the sheriff. So we're not spending any time looking, for example, at combative inmates. And I was actually kind of using it as one where we aren't trying to review that. It's inherent to the work and it's up to the department to review. Slip, trips and falls is probably, was David's first focus. He did visit every location and do a walkthrough, looking for things like trip hazards. Most of those slip, trips and falls occur in the winter, so making sure that we have good snow removal and ice removal procedures and things like that can help keep it down every single year. That's one of our largest workers' comp, particularly in the departments that are not doing any type of hazardous work, such as office employees. Slip, trip and fall is the primary reason for a workers' comp. So ensuring that our walkways are clear and unobstructed, our spaces are uncluttered, there aren't any trip hazards in there. That has been something. And, you know, if you have more to add to that, David, by all means do.
No, I mean.
I don't
covered
want to
it, yeah.
belabor this or, because I want to keep this moving, but Dave, in your, I remember sitting here in this very committee just 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and Jamie and I would talk about, well, wow, I mean, how do we not have a camera there when we know that our slips are happening in the specific uncameraed area, unvideoed area? Wow, that happens a lot. Have you found many areas where we still need to beef up surveillance? I don't even know that that's the right word.
For slips, trips and falls, no, we generally get some sort of video surveillance of the event occurring.
Okay, so we've improved in our blind spots. Is that the right way to say it? I don't know. Pardon me? Yes, yes. Thank you, Mr. Roth. Please continue.
Sure. So the following slide, please.
You need page 28? What do you need?
Yes, please.
Page
Page
29.
29.
29, Blair?
Yes. So court security, relatively few incidents. Again, combative person pipes up, but as we've discussed, that's, you know, their tactics and protocol. Next slide, please. And then this is the public safety. So these are your patrol deputies out on the street doing typical public safety, law enforcement activity.
Thank you. If anybody wants to spend some time diving into that, John, I think that was your bailiwick. Please feel free. And David, thank you so much for being comprehensive on that and responding to the committee. So,
Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
Just one comment, and I think you're already doing it, but what I saw in my past life, good risk management data can be used to share with people. So let's say the sheriff's department. I'm sure they know this is happening. The claims come right across their desk. But when you can say, this is what we're seeing, you're on site doing this, but does this look high? Is this a bad problem? Did you know about that? Just getting perspective of the user, if you will, towards that is great. And I know you're there, you're probably already doing it, but.
Sure, I've begun sharing this type of information with them, and obviously they're going to see this. So.
Okay, staffing?
So there's reports included, applicants and new hires and terminations are included. If there's any questions, I'm happy to dive into these deeper if you'd like.
Any trends that you think?
The only thing I would say is on your new hires report, you don't have, your county departments aren't really doing any hiring. Do with that what you will. So there are only a few. I think the health hired a couple, but they're grant funded, and animal control replaced a kennel assistant. That was the only county departments that did any hiring last month.
Okay. Thank you. Compliance report.
That's just the prevention of sexual harassment training. We are past the deadline on that. It was supposed to be done by the end of August. So now we're getting at our outliers. That includes board members, elected officials. So if you have not done yours, please get it done as soon as possible. And if you don't have it or don't know where to get it, please let me know.
Thank you. Anybody in this room that hasn't completed their sexual harassment training?
I think it's me.
Oh, I think it's you and me, so. Ooh, yes, yes, we're on that. Thank you. Let's see. Anita, we're gonna go to old business number 9, but before we jump into that, one of the items not on, so there's no resolution or action to be taken, but it's just a piece of old business that we want to discuss. We had been challenged to some degree with trying to come up with some reporting system or performance indicators for department heads. And I think that you, Anita, I'm looking at Anita. Anita and John had volunteered to maybe jump into that. I think Leslie, was there a third person in on that? Mike Linder? Okay. Where are we at on that and how have we?
Yeah.
In your opinion?
So, we made Jonathan do the hard work. He contacted other counties to get documents, and the one from DuPage is very easy, very straightforward. Not complicated. And so when we get done, I wanted to mention it here, and then I'm going to shoot an email to Jamie and Cliff and everybody else on this group, so you guys can look at it deeper. And then, my suggestions are that we do these performance appraisals. And I think it's a form we should use for all of our non-elected groups. So even the employees underneath a manager. And I would suggest we do them on their employment anniversary, not once a year tied to our raise cycle, because as we know, our raises are pretty much the same for everybody. And I don't also want to hear from people that, oh, we don't have time to do performance appraisals because we got too many to do. If you do it on a work anniversary, they're kind of spread out over the year. So that's number one. And then number two, I believe when we do an appraisal on one of our directors, that we will have to do that in a closed session in a committee, because I think that's the only fair way to do it. So those are my two suggestions. And we're not going to discuss it today. It's not a resolution today, but I just want to keep the ball moving, and maybe next week we can put it on as a action item.
Okay. I think, Anita, that from my perspective, our board, our 24-person board continues to struggle with the hierarchy of who reports to whom. I think that we have still yet to answer, do the department heads report to Madam Chair or whoever is serving in that role at the time? Or do they answer to a department head? I think the waters continue to be muddied by saying, well, gosh, if we just had an administrator, they would report to that person. And well, we don't. Okay. And this is the way we're set up. And how is this supposed to be done? And I'm not understanding why it's so gosh darn difficult to simply say, hey, Jamie is an executive department head. She answers to this committee. I think it's pretty simple. And if the committee wants to break that down into something more tangible, is there a direct chain of command? I don't know. I think Jamie and I work really well together, but what if we didn't? But what if there was an issue? But what if an employee, like in the past, an employee has had a problem with a department head? Who do they turn to? What is the mechanism by which we do that? Anita, if we're going to be doing performance evaluations, those performance evaluations should really be consistent across all department heads. This shouldn't be one for that office and one for this office. No, they should be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Arbitrary. They should be consistent in what we're doing.
Not arbitrary.
Non-arbitrary. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to imply.
Yeah.
They should not be arbitrary. We should be looking at some consistency on there. And I think the challenge for us was to say, okay, how do we do that? And I do like the notion of saying, this isn't a performance based on what's your raise going to be. Well, Anita, we think you should, that's not what this is. And I'm sorry, I looked and said Anita and I meant Sonia. That's not what we're looking to do. But what we're looking to say is, hey, listen, you do have to answer to a committee or an individual, and we're going to do it on your work anniversary, not on some performance threshold that, oh my God, we have 17 of these to do. We'll do this person at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. That's not, we're not looking for just a compliance. We're looking to say, what tools do you need? You know, Michael, what technology are we missing for you? What were your goals for the year and did you reach them and achieve them? Or have you fallen short of them? And if you fell short, why did you fall short? But what are your goals? Well, it's whatever the committee has agreed that this is where we want to go and what tools or staff do you have to get us there? And I think that we need to, I mean, and I don't know what the bottleneck is, but this should be very straightforward from, say, the state's attorney's office saying, this is the mechanism that you have today. That doesn't mean that we can't change it tomorrow. It doesn't mean that it was wrong or right in the past, but this is what we have today and we should be following. And I don't believe that we are. Michael.
I think we have an overwhelming problem in the county that this could be the start of changing a trend. Our committees depend on department head to bring them an agenda and they sit and watch and ask a couple questions. But our committees are not actively involved in the work of the committee often. Not every committee, but very often the committees are not all that involved. And I think this puts the committee on the spot. The committee is doing this evaluation. The department head is not bringing his or her evaluation forward and saying, I filled out everything but blank 3 and you guys can do the rest. They're coming in and saying, we're having a meeting here to talk, and Mr. Chairman, let's get started because I'm here to talk with the committee. And that's the way it should be. It should be a back and forth with the committee, but the committee should really have the responsibility for this. We don't want the department saying, well, this is one more report we have to file, so let's quickly get this done and have the committee approve it. No, it should be a blank sheet of paper when the committee sits down to do this work. And I think there are a lot of other things we do that should start that way.
Mike, the toughest thing in my opinion, the toughest thing for me to comment on is that I don't know how other committees work. I don't know how other chairmen work with their committees. I'm really blessed with Jamie and her team, and we speak 6 times a week, 10 times a week, and it's usually like, what did you think you heard that they wanted? I don't know. This is what I think I want, but I'll call Gripe or I'll call Anita and let's hone in what it is. But why can't you get that? Well, because of this. Well, I can call and grease that wheel. Do you think you can get that information? Well, there's a stop here or there's and most of the conversations are Jamie saying, you're too dumb to understand this, Cliff. Let me bring it down to your level, that sort of thing. But we interact often, sometimes multiple times in a day. I don't know that that's the way other committees work. I just assume it is, but I don't know that.
Well, and I agree. There's more interaction here than there is in some other places. Our human resources is kind of a confusing conglomerate because the electeds all have their own little version of human resources. And yet in the end, these people end up handling all of the insurance and all of the paperwork and so forth. So it's a complicated thing. And so I appreciate that there's a lot going on with you. And part of it then is coming back and sharing that with the committee, and you do a pretty good job of that. But there's committees that basically everybody sits on their hands, listens to the reports and moves it on to exec. We don't do that.
I don't think that's the way it's supposed to run.
No, it's not. And it varies from committee to committee. Some committees are very involved in what their department or division is doing, and some committees just really are getting the reports.
Mike, do you make a correlation on that based on size? Like we interact because we're small and we have to. We don't have the resources.
I think size has something to do with it.
Okay.
The immensity of some departments make it hard to coordinate all that with a department committee chair who can only devote so much time to this. The committee chair is not hired as a super director, he just, but the committee chair has to sit down with that department head 2 or 3 days ahead of the meeting and say, well, wait a second, you need to be talking about this, and it's not on your list, we need to get it on the list, well, 2 or 3 days before the agenda goes in, actually. And you guys are doing that. I'm not certain it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
And
Mike, just to let you know,
And
it
so
is
I
not
think-
uncommon for this young lady to take my call or vice versa at 9 o'clock at night,
of course,
because we've been in, Jamie the other day, hey, I have too many meetings to talk to you today. Can we talk after hours?
Yeah.
And it's 7:30 at night and she's calling, and you exhausted, like, dude, what do you want? I mean, seriously. So we're doing the best we can, but
I get that,
but I think knowing what the expectation is across all committees and then being able to come back and evaluate that. If that's our structure, then dang it, follow the structure.
Yeah.
If you don't like the structure, take steps to change it.
well, and I just think that for those departments that are not as involved, the committee's not as involved, this will get them involved and maybe start them asking some questions about why aren't we involved in other decisions?
Appreciate your input.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Shepro,
yeah, I think part of the dilemma that you posed at.
lean right into your microphones, kind sir.
No. Son,
And Ken, it is an absolute pleasure to have you back, my friend.
thank you. Well, we'll see. Problem is that legally, your structure is government by committee. That's the way it's set up by the statute. It's the way that in theory it works. But as you know, but your experience here is that the reality is that that varies tremendously based upon the committee chairman, the committee makeup, and a lot of times things will go by default to the board chairman if the committee doesn't want to get involved. You've probably heard that, for example, in city government, Chicago has a weak mayor form of government under our Constitution. But the mayor generally runs things. Mayor Daley the first was not a weak mayor, but if the city council had chosen to say, by the way it's written, we're in charge, you're just the presiding officer up there. But that's not the reality, and part of it is that one person is usually more efficient than a 50-member city council that's trying to do the same thing. So, I don't know that there's really an answer to your question as to what everybody else does, but I suspect that you would find that committees are very different. Some of it's related to size, but a lot of it is related to the personalities. And, legally, if somebody wanted to assert it and say, by golly, this committee is running the show, legally you could do that, but it's.
And Ken, there's a flip side to this coin, because I'm not sitting here on a soapbox making a political commentary. I think it's difficult for anybody, whether that was a previous chairman, a future chairman, or a sitting chairman. I think it's difficult for them to do their job when they don't really have a clear understanding of what their role is and what it is to do. You might have one committee that says, don't you dare step on our toes, and another committee that maybe isn't doing it. And so that chair feels that they need to step in and make sure it gets done because that chair has some integrity. So
That's always been the dilemma, especially now when you start talking about an administrator.
agreed.
So now the department head is, what if the administrator wants me to do X, but the committee chair wants me to do Y, and maybe the board chairman wants me to do Z?
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. So my point of the conversation is, Anita, first off, thank you to you and John and Michael for even, and Mike, I'll come right to you, for even taking this on, because it's much like hitting the gas pedal when you're at the beach. That tire is just going to sink in the sand to some degree, and we're not going to move forward. Figure out how we might do this, because if our job is human services, managing the staff protecting our employees, being there to support everybody is the most important thing. But if I'm an executive director and I don't even know who does my performance evaluation, how do I know if I'm doing a good job or a bad job? I mean, seriously, Michael.
Just to Ken's point, I don't think we need to do anything with this, but if we go back in the history that most of us will remember of this county, Karen McConaughey and certainly Chris Lawson and others that surrounded them have assumed a lot more authority than what the code gives them. And the boards have acquiesced to that, said, okay, well, this is what the chair wants. And the chair really has much more limited authority than what any of the chairs have exercised. And that's would be a problem if and when we were to bring in an administrator, because would we then have chairs who figured that the administrator was their assistant? I think it long-term, that could be an issue.
Sonia, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask Amy, because we were talking and talking, and again, we go back to the same point. Do we really know what everybody's doing? And I think you guys are the hands-on. You guys are the ones should be telling us, and I'm pretty sure that you tell him, or when you guys are talking and giving those opinions. But how many, I don't know, years? It's just the talk and where's the action, right? So I think like at this point, like Mr. Serta said, we need to go ahead and make sure that our committee goals are there. How are we protecting each of the employees? Because I feel like every time that we meet is the same thing and the same thing. We don't know what departments are doing. We don't know this. We don't have any data. So I think, I don't know, you answer to me, Jamie. Like, what's in your mind? Like, is it like what we're thinking? Is it something that it can be done, or absolutely not, because you know every person out there?
I think the board can do what it wants, but I think it's important to understand that the authority to do what you're asking is not currently in place for me or this committee. Really, the individual committees have responsibilities over themselves, and this committee doesn't have really any authority over them right now in regards to that. You asked, what's the current process and are we following it? There is no current process. There is nothing currently other than, as Mr. Shepro stated, a committee system. There is nothing in writing or code that dictates who manages a department head. I think if you want to go down this road, you have to look at what kind of resolution and or ordinance and work with the state's attorney to establish what authority you want, who you want to give it to, and how you want to do that, and have it done properly so that the necessary steps are taken first to establish that process before we try to implement one. Because I think you're going to come up to a lot of roadblocks if you try to go down this road without first having whatever it is you need in place to do that. So if you want to give each committee authority over the department head, I think you would want to start there before then assigning them a task of evaluating that department head.
Now, let me ask you something. If we start that process and we're like, okay, we're going to go ahead and get with all the committees and start working on that process, is that going to go ahead and open a can of worms?
You will recall that from time to time, at least in my memory, there have been occasions where it's, as Ms. Lobello says, does it go to this committee? Does it go to another committee? What if that committee does something different than your committee? And the result is never really very good. But
The only thing the only comment I can make is Sonia, it's all built on trust and respect. And the work that Anita's doing is truly, we are doing this transparently, cards up, face forward. This is where we're going with this. So please just give input. The train's coming down the tracks. We don't know what it looks like, but if everybody jumps in a little bit and says, you're right. And if the train's going in the wrong direction, somebody correct it and put it on the right track. But this notion that the executive directors don't know who they respond to, and John, I see, don't know who they respond to, that is a problem. The notion that we don't have a criteria by which to rate or give a performance, evaluation to is a problem. The notion that an employee that might have a problem with their supervisor and don't know who to go to beyond that, short of going to human services. But what if it was Christine that had a problem with the human services director and blah, blah, blah. That is a problem. And so we know that we need to overcome those. I guarantee you, if you think we're going to please everybody, we're not.
And
But if we can please the majority and keep the train going in that direction, I think that by Q1, we could really have some great infrastructure, if you will, on this in place to keep moving it forward. And Anita, I applaud you for even tackling it and wanting to discuss it further and keep it going. And informally, we'll continue to do that until we start getting some stuff in writing that we can start packaging.
And you know what? I was just thinking something so simple, like a piece of sheet where it says, this committee does this committee does this committee goes to this person.
Oh, that org
Just-
chart exists. Yeah,
Okay.
we just don't
Yeah,
look
there's-
at it.
There's committee definitions and codes certainly that you can refer to and understand that some department heads have more than one committee they report to based on their subject matter. So there is some crossover there too. I think what you probably could do without too much to do is create a evaluation form, send it out to everybody and encourage them to evaluate the department heads that report to their committee. We don't have any authority to compel it, but it certainly is an excellent practice that I think
But-
all your
but
department heads
Jamie,
would welcome.
We do as a 24-person board.
Yes, yes.
We
Then you
have
need
that
a
authority.
resolution.
And
Yes.
so what we're looking for is that tool by which this body, this committee can bring that through the committee structure to the point where a board, the 24 of us members, can say, golly, we like this, or at least a majority of us like this enough to make this happen. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
So you'd
okay,
like
I
a
see.
resolution? Would you like a resolution or some kind of structure presented for
I
consideration?
will leave that to you and Anita to continue to discuss. And when you think you're comfortable in bringing something forward to us, by all means do. And Anita, is that fair?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and then, and I've got Gripe, Lindner, and then Anita, and then we're at a quarter till, let's keep her moving. So,
Okay.
John,
Thank you, sir. So mindful of what we've been talking about and Mr. Shepro's comments about doing this the right way. And Jamie's been very on point, by the way, as we started this some time back, saying we don't want to meet with too many people. And Leslie was involved and, watching the Open Meetings Act, all that good stuff. So what I think we need to do, we can beat this dead horse in a subcommittee or whatever this committee thinks would be the best way to do that. I think maybe if we could walk out of here with that structure that's appropriate and legal and ethical and works. I'm willing to help in that process, but I think that would be great if we could do that to just, take it out of here and move it into that.
Michael?
I really appreciate some of what Jamie and Ken have brought up. And I think what we probably need to go one more step towards having sort of a framework together, an idea where we're going. And then maybe we need to talk about, well, it's two things. One is, what do we do with the director who answers to 2 or 3 committees? Because that's, if the committees are going to do the evaluation, they're going to all get together and do one evaluation. They're going to do 3 evaluations. That's a question. And then we'll start talking about, is this resolution material or ordinance material? Get the state's attorney involved, and sort of by the time we are ready to suggest some implementation, probably to have an ordinance or resolution in place.
Anita?
Okay, so, good discussion. And I just want to,
Wanted?
yeah. But I want to say that I've been on this committee with you since the beginning. We started, oh my gosh, yes, we've been together so long and we've managed to not kill each other. It's been great. But we've tackled some really, really tough things in the past 7 years. And we've never been afraid to touch them. So it doesn't, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, but it's not so important as to we're going to make somebody happy or we're going to make somebody sad or this person's not going to like it and this one's going to complain because it's too much work. But we have the guiding principle of we do what's right and what we believe is going to move the county forward. And I believe any organization that does not have some kind of performance appraisal and a way to have that interaction back and forth is never going to move forward and never succeed. So I like the conversation. I will send this out to you. Jamie, let's get together. And obviously, we're not going to run into anything without getting approval from the state's attorney and all those things. But I like your idea. Let's get something in the books for Q1 to actually do this. It's not going to be perfect. We know that. And this committee especially, we don't mind saying, yeah, we got to tweak that. That wasn't quite perfect. So let's just do it.
And Leslie, I'll come right to you. And so Sonia, please know, as one of the newer members of the committee, I don't want to say we pride ourselves, but we are very acknowledging of saying we don't mind trying really hard things that haven't been done under the notion that we may not get it right and it may need to be tweaked later, but at least let's try it. And everybody is very good about saying, yeah, you're right, that didn't work, or hallelujah, that was fabulous. But you need to at least try. If you're going to wait until it's perfect, you're going to be waiting forever. Okay, so let's just do it and leave the door open, leave the window open to say, we're not sure about this part. Let's just see how it plays. Okay, Leslie,
I'm
and
sorry.
then we'll move on.
I'm sorry. So I just wanted to remind you, if there's more than 2 of you, you're not a work group and you will have to meet with open meeting requirements. So when you mentioned 3, you guys trigger
I was,
an official meeting.
Yeah, we've
So
never
it's
met,
just 2 of you.
never
Okay.
met the 3 of
Okay,
us together.
You talked about it. So I just want to make sure that we don't do that. And the second,
John did a lot of research when we realized the 3
Right.
was a problem. He shipped his
It-
research.
but you have to be careful because you don't want to daisy chain information. So it's either going to be 2 people in a work group or it's going to be 3 people with official noticing.
Appreciate that.
The second thing is when you talk about executive directors that report to multiple committees, whatever committee that they present their budget to should be the committee that actually does the evaluation.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I think that's very smart.
I think that's really smart.
I've been doing this a while, you know?
Good job, Juby. Okay, if we could go on to old business resolution authorizing contract extension for workers' compensation and liability third-party administrator.
We did pass this at the last meeting, but the state's attorney did point out that there was an issue regarding the term, kind of it was auto renewing, not something we want. So we went back and we made the adjustments. The state's attorney recommended, CCMSI accepted them. So there's some slight edits. That's why we're repassing it. So those are edits at the
But
recommendation of the
bluntly, there
state's
was
attorney.
nothing concerning performance. They simply had an auto renewal added to the time frame, and we don't do that. So we had to take the contract back, remove the time renewal, put a date certain, and move forward. With that said, could I have a motion? Do you need a motion to
You're just going to repass it because we've made some edits to the contract at the state's attorney's recommendation. So we're just going to do a normal, it's attached, pass it.
Okay, does it need to be the same people that motioned it the first time? It doesn't
No.
matter. So
No.
Sonia Garcia
I'll go ahead and.
and Mike Linder second. Any conversation on that? Please call the vote.
Alan?
Alan, I.
Garcia?
Garcia, aye.
Grape, yes?
Lewis.
Bush, yes.
Carver?
Tarver, yes.
Linder?
Linda, yes.
Sturgis?
Surges, yes. And thank you for the state's attorney, whoever caught that, or Jamie, whoever on
That
your
would be
team. caught
Caitlin
that.
Vargas.
Caitlin Vargas, thank you. Appreciate that because we didn't. Item 10, new business, resolution authorizing county to contract with Humana Inc. to provide the 2026 healthcare continuation coverage for Medicare eligible retired and disabled employees and surviving spouses. And before we go further on this, there is some nice person that was listening online last time who sent me a text asking all about this. I think everybody understands we had a loss in our family. The burial was yesterday. I did not reach back to that person, but if they are online listening at all, we will answer this right now in a soliloquy or a monologue by Jamie before we go ahead and call the vote. And I only bring that up because this person reached out and was very poignant on things, but we don't have a choice on this. So
So state pension code does require that local government provide continuing benefits for employees that leave employment with pension, as well as disabled employees and their surviving spouses. Does not require that the county pay anything towards that coverage, but that it's offered. So we do offer continuing coverage. Those under 65 can continue our current plan. And then when they turn 65, they are required to take Medicare, and we offer a Medicare supplement to cover that requirement of the pension code. So this is the Medicare supplement that we provide.
and who pays
pursuant
for
to
that?
The participant pays entirely for it. So this does not cost the county any money. It is a fully insured plan. So it is a premium that the participant pays. That premium is included on the resolution that is established by Humana because it is a fully insured plan, not a self-insured plan. So this dollar amount goes up $30 versus for the single, 60 for the couple, versus last year's, which is again determined by Humana. It's cost the county nothing, but it is a plan that we do have to offer. Most participants pay through it as a deduction from their IMRF pension payment.
So I believe that was motioned by Lewis, second by Gripe. Open for discussion.
Just a quick question. Jamie, you mentioned it doesn't cost the county anything from a premium standpoint. It doesn't, but from an administration standpoint, it does. Is there any option for us to do like a Cobra-esque 2% on top of that premium to offset your expenses?
No.
I mean, not yours.
No, it depends. No, we don't currently do that. If we're legally allowed to, I have no idea. Again, it's something that's managed with our existing staff. It's not
So
something.
you're saying
that's-
if you play by debit or credit card, there's a 2% fee that you.
Well, and we do that with Cobra,
Yeah.
right? So we do that with Cobra, and it is something that's specifically outlined in the Cobra laws that if a participant wants to use Cobra, we upcharge them by 2% to cover the administrative costs of managing the plan.
John, that was good.
We don't do that with retirees. I'm not aware of if we're legally allowed to, but we do not do that. We just straight up, they pay the premium that is offered. There's not a lot of administration associated with the Humana plan for us because it is in fact a fully insured plan. We are just collecting that premium through their IMRF deduction and passing it on to Humana.
Jamie, if you had to take a quick, just off the cuff, how many people are you talking about here? Participants?
She knows it's 42.
42. Okay.
42. We do also just.
And this is for the
Just for your-
county offices included. This is for
Yes.
all 1,500.
All
employees.
medical insurance, dental is a county-wide, so it includes offices and departments, and we manage all of that. Just for your information relative to this, for those under age 65, they are continued on our self-insurance plan. For those with over 15 years of service with the county pays 10% of that premium for them. That is established in our health insurance continuation policy, and it has been that way for some time. Certainly, that is an option for the county to do or not do. So not only do we not upcharge them by 2%, we give them a 10% discount as a county. That's been in place for longer than I've been here.
With no other questions, can we, Deb?
How do we choose the Humana plan over others?
So it
Great
was
question.
chosen based on it being really I think it's the AARP's most recommended Medicare supplement plan. It is highly comprehensive, so that makes it comparable and actually a little better than our Blue Cross plan. So we wanted what people are continuing their insurance for is for the very comprehensive plan that is offered by the county. Certainly, anyone who wants to get a Medicare supplement plan can certainly shop that around however they'd like. They have no obligation to maintain on our plan. It's just, it's easy for them because they can have it deducted from their pension, and then we make the payment for them rather than having to make their own monthly payment. IMRF does offer some additional options for them that are through them. We certainly don't advocate for or against any of these choices. It's an individual choice.
Thank you.
Could we call the vote, please?
Alan,
Alan, I.
Garcia, aye.
Right, yes.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Tarver,
Tarver, yes.
Linder,
Linder, yes.
Surges.
Surges, yes. Bill, you okay out there?
Me, Bill?
Yes.
Thanks for checking in, Cliff. Yes, I am.
Thank you. Item, new business B, 2026 benefits enrollment process. If, just to set the stage, if I'm not mistaken on this, Jamie, the vendor that we were using to do this in the past has said, yeah, we're not doing that anymore and we need to change.
They are restricting themselves to employers, I think over 5,000 employees. To them, we're too small of an employer for their business. And so that was Smart Ben was the company. So we had a discussion with IT. We do have a module within New World Systems that the county already owns and operates. So this will be overall a lower cost, although there's some implementation associated with this year. This will be far less expensive for the county in the long run to use New World Systems. There is a little more handwork that we have to do, but it's something we've fully evaluated and we believe we will be able to do that without any loss of function for the employee. The benefits of it, uses the eSuite system, which is the system currently in place for employees to access things like pay stubs, W-2 forms, their vacation accruals. It uses that existing system, so they don't need a new password, more sign-in information to remember or to learn a new system. So they will utilize the eSuite system for their open enrollment. One important thing that we wanted to highlight there up on the screen is the notice that went out to all employees that their dependents need to be properly in the system before open enrollment begins for them to successfully add them to their insurance plan during open enrollment. If they were in the system years ago when we used it before, they might still be in there, but really every employee needs to log into eSuite, make sure they know how, and that they're able to log into eSuite if they've never done it. And they need to check to make sure their dependents are correct. And if there are any dependents they plan to add to their insurance for the first of the year, they need to go ahead and add them in there, which would be to include their name, birth date, and social security number and add them. So we're asking everyone to do that. Instructions were attached when it went out. Certainly, we will send out reminders with instructions again. And if anyone has any questions, they should reach out to the HR department.
I think Sonia will join me in saying that in our industry, who was considered in your household for driving purposes is changing dramatically. You need to list them, period. So I don't think this is something that's shouldn't be met with resistance, but Sonia, just to let you know, when we talk about initiatives that we've taken on, it wasn't so long ago that this was all done manually on paper and took months and months. We took it to an eSuite to try and do this electronically. It was like, oh my God, we can't do this. And it didn't go smoothly. I mean, we're honest. It was bumpity bump trying to make it. Now we have it and the vendor goes, you're out. Okay, great. We'll pivot, but we're not going backwards back to paper. We're just going to pivot and do it in-house. And you've heard me say in open 24-person session, there's so many modules that we don't use that's available. This is just another one of those that we're going to do in-house now. But we're not turning back. And I think this is working marvelously. And I applaud you guys for taking the initiative. With that, do you need it's on here, but there's no resolution.
There's
This
no
was just
resolution.
information.
Yes, it's just informational. It doesn't require any kind of resolution or anything. I know a lot of employees listen to this committee and I just wanted, department heads, please make sure your employees have gone in. They will be struggling during open enrollment if they have not done this step. And we really want open enrollment in October to go smoothly. So please, anyone who's listening, please encourage your staff or yourself, please go in and make
You know
sure
how we have
dependents are
that
correct.
system that says, did you take your sexual harassment training? I kind of would recommend that we do this same thing blast that goes out that says, please sign off that you read that you need to add your dependent because reformation sucks. When they come back and say, what you never told us, and we adopted this young person, but you know what? We don't want to reform. Use that tool that we have to say, sign off that you read this and don't come crying about it later. You knew it. I mean, we have these tools. Okay. Item C, extended illness policy update.
Okay, so this is, there's a draft included, and I just kind of want to explain our old policy and what we're kind of suggesting here and understand if this is something the committee would like us to move forward with. It's just an idea that came up there's a lot of push for parental leave, and things like that, from unions, from employees. So we kind of want to define a mid-ground, something that would allow some parental leave for our employees, which I think is a wonderful thing to do without adding additional strain to an already stretched county budget. We currently have extended illness leave. Employees who accrue extended illness leave do so at a rate of 1 per month of employment. So that's 12 per year. That's a pretty nice benefit. It currently does not provide for parental leave. It provides only for the employee's own medical condition to be used and up to 3 days per year for the medical condition of a family member. So the changes I am proposing would open this to parental leave. So currently a woman who has a baby could take up to 6 weeks or 8 weeks, depending on the recommendation of her doctor, for medical. And a lot of women use that for their parental leave. So I'm proposing that it be expanded to non-medical parental leave, which would mean it is open to both mothers and fathers, as well as adoptive parents, so that they can use it towards the up to 12 weeks that is allowable under the Family and Medical Leave Act. They would only be able to use up to the balance they have accrued in that bank. So again, it would still be subject to the accrual rates. So your employees who have that time accrued would be able to use it towards parental leave. I think this is most important for.
Are we trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist? Have people come asking for this?
Yes.
Is there a budget impact to the county for this?
So it has been requested not just by individuals, but a union did actually come forth and ask for parental leave. They didn't ask for this. What they asked for was an unaccrued, everybody gets time off for parental leave was kind of the initial request associated with it. It's not an uncommon request. It's nothing that the county's ever done. And the budget impact of that would be huge. So it's not something that I think the county would consider as an option right now. This is a way to open some parental leave up to adoptive parents as well as fathers. And, like I said, mothers can certainly take it right now for the medical disability associated with childbirth, but that is the only time it is used associated with parental leave. So this allows fathers and adoptive parents to utilize it towards parental leave. There is no budget implication to the county really, because the employee would be paid if they were here
Already their
working.
benefit.
Well, yes, it's an accrued benefit they already have, although it does not pay out in cash when they terminate. It can only be used towards service credit when they retire. But this would be, if you're looking at a father who takes a couple weeks of parental leave, the option would be they would be here working. They're getting paid. They've been budgeted to be paid for that time. So it does not affect your budget per se. I'm not going to say it doesn't cost you money because you're paying a person who's not here working, but it doesn't impact your budget as they were budgeted to be paid for the entire year and they're not receiving anything over their budgeted salary.
So the point of bringing this as just a discussion item, is this like one of those first reading sort of deals? What is?
It's not a legally required first reading. It's just, it was my idea, but it's a policy change. So I'm interested to know if this committee would like to move forward with this or not. It's entirely up to you.
We're going to do it this way. Mr. Lindner, any questions, comments? What's your gut check feel on this?
I think it's a wonderful thing that we ought to be doing.
Okay, Miss Allen.
That said,
Okay,
there is a cost.
I tried really hard, sorry.
There is a cost associated if we have to use overtime or something to cover the absence. So.
We can figure that out. Yep, Deb?
Can I, this is an additional, if I adopt a child and I take off my 3 weeks, but then I have a medical condition, I'm going to take off another 3 weeks.
So everybody has up to 12 weeks family and medical leave in a rolling year. So we do track that and it doesn't matter the purpose. So if you take off 3 weeks for the birth or placement of a child, that's an FMLA approved absence and you can take the time whether or not we make this change. And you can take the 3 weeks when you get sick, whether or not we make this change. The difference is whether or not we pay them for the absence.
Gotcha. Okay, I think it's an appropriate thing to do.
Sonia?
I like it. I am in favor of it. But I think it has to be really well written. So we don't impact the budget and people don't take advantage of it. Because like the example that Mrs. Allen just put, right? If I get sick and then on top they already have 12 weeks, right? So I don't know. I mean, just as long as it's really written, I like it. I like everything that's, for the performance, for the people that comes to work to the King County, that it's happy to come to work to the King County. But again, we're not going to go ahead and make everybody happy, right? So,
Right. In the way it's currently written, it requires the employee to do FMLA paperwork so that it would apply towards their 12 rolling weeks of FMLA at the time in which they use it. So it does not compound with other illnesses. 12 weeks is what you are entitled to under the law. That's not flexible. That's a federal law that applies to us, and it is within that 12 weeks. So it does not mean you can take 12 weeks for the birth or placement of child and then 12 weeks for an illness. It's 12 cumulative weeks, regardless of the reason.
That allows this use as well.
Yes, we're expanding the use
Hey,
of
we
this
already
paid
passed it. We
benefit.
don't go back. No.
We're expanding the use of this paid benefit time to be used towards the already protected absence, if that makes sense.
Mr. Gripe.
I'm generally in favor of it. And I would agree that the cost issue isn't one of paying that employee, because if they have the sick time, they have the sick time. So this would expand that. If I'm not sick, I can still be out. So, but I've got payment there. My concern, and I would like the number, kind of like what Michael was asking about, is if I'm not there, my boss has to find somebody else to do my job. So that's at least an inconvenience, if not an additional expense. I got to go get somebody to do 2 jobs or hire, whatever. I'd be very interested in quantification of that, because that might be bigger than, it's probably way bigger than the cost of paying the salary for the person who's sick or out. So I'd love to know what that is before we go, yep, sounds good. But generally, I'm in favor.
Anita?
Yeah, I'm good with it all.
Bill Tarver, are you still online or no? Did we lose Bill? Okay. Jamie, do you have Mr. Roth, did you have any input? I'm so sorry. I apologize. Okay. Jamie, did you get what you needed on this maybe?
Yeah, I will then. So my next step will be I'll circulate it to department heads for comment, as well as the state's attorney to evaluate the language I wrote, and just kind of get some feedback there. I'm assuming we move on to the next step. That next step would be to bring it back as an actual resolution for your vote.
Mr. Shepro? Get in that microphone, sir. Yeah.
You have to eat the
All
darn
right.
thing.
Would this require any of the union contracts to be opened up to, for example, you mentioned that the union has asked for a broader thing. Would this require any bargaining?
No, first of all, it's an increase in benefits. It's an additional, so it wouldn't require any bargaining because we're not taking anything away. We're only adding. But for many of the unions do not use this bank of time. They have a different sick provision rather than this one, such as the sheriff's office, for example, does not use this bank of time. They have a different type of sick leave that they accrue in a different manner. This wouldn't apply to them. Generally, our most county policies are for non-union, but we do have a couple of our unions that do utilize this, like transportation and health. So we wouldn't need to rebargain it because it's an increase in benefits, but it is definitely appealing to all the staff, including the union staff.
Deb, go ahead.
I'm going to guess that we've lived through this in some way before. When you are talking with department heads and electeds, could you ask them how it's been handled in their office? Part of the reason I ask is that I have a granddaughter who has a lovely maternity benefit. And that's a law firm. So they have made arrangements for how they're covering her. And I would like to know if we have lived through this before and how we've handled it, if they had to hire extra people, if there was an overtime ramification. Could you throw that into the pot?
Certainly. I mean, we already are dealing with maternity leaves, and fathers are already eligible to take up to 12 weeks of paternal leave if they want. So I just want to make clear, we're not changing anything in terms of who can be absent, just whether or not we pay them for the absence out of this benefit time. So I think it's going to vary wildly depending on position. When I had an absence for maternity leave in my own department, we just absorbed it with the other staff, which is just a little extra work for other staff. My staff are exempt. So, that extra work is something that they needed to pick up when we had high amounts of work. As opposed to some departments who may deal with hourly staff who have to pay time and a half if they have to staff overtime. So I think it varies wildly from position to position and depends on the nature of position so much, but they've already all been dealing with maternity leaves to the same degree. We're not changing the provisions of maternity leave, just if we allow them to access this bank for the time they are already taking.
Exactly.
Deb?
And human nature being what it is, if I'm being paid, I may take off some extra time. If I'm not being paid, I might get back a little sooner.
Mhm. Again, it's an accrued bank, so it's not an endless supply of time off. They have to accrue the time, so they have to work here and actually
have it come
accrue
and
the
go, yeah.
time. So the time is already there. So
You either
There-
have it coming to you or you don't.
Right, it's
So,
a
I mean,
clear-
there's
it's a
no way.
bank. It's not, I agree
Okay.
with what you're saying. I think if you give people, hey, I'm going to give you 12 weeks of paid time, nobody's going to say, I only want to take 3. I don't think that's going to happen. This is an accrued bank, and how much they want to use out of the accrued bank is still a choice.
Okay.
Mr. Lindner, do I have a motion to place reports on file?
So moved.
Why don't you
A
do
unanimous
unanimous consent?
Unanimous.
It's consent,
Consent.
yes.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any need for an executive session. Mr. Gripe,
Just,
this is for adjournment or?
it will be.
Okay.
I will tag that onto the end, and this is going to be very brief. But I was going to say that I monitor my blood pressure after board meetings, committee meetings, forest preserve meetings. And I would say this committee ends up having my blood pressure lower than it is in most cases. And I'm being serious because of the atmosphere that the 3 of you create, that this committee creates, that people who aren't even on the committee, who share their time. And, Pinocchio had Jiminy Cricket on his shoulder. I have Leslie Juby on mine. But yeah, but it deserves to be said because we don't do that enough. Thank you all for what you do. And I thank this committee and you, Mr. Chair, and everybody who contributes, Savannah, Rachel, Blair back there. This doesn't happen without a bunch of people doing stuff, and it happens nicely and well. So thank you all. And I would like to move for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great day. Thank you so much.